During my wife's wake, I heard my daughter-in-law whisper to my son, "Everyone's here. Go change the locks on his house." My son nodded and went out for a bit. When he returned, he looked white as a ghost and said, "There's something strange." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I kept my hands busy, straightening a crooked photo on the condolence table. An old mechanic's reflex. Fix what's off. The frame held Elizabeth and me on our wedding day, 42 years back when we were young and stupid and thought love could carry us through anything. Turned out it could, just not beyond passing. My fingers left no prints on the glass. Clean hands, clean conscience. That's what Elizabeth used to say when I'd come home from the shop, scrubbed raw from the industrial soap, but still finding grease under my nails. She'd kiss my knuckles anyway, every single time, like some kind of ritual that kept us tethered to each other through all the ordinary years. The funeral home smelled like lilies and cheap coffee and something else. Grief, maybe, or just the accumulated breath of 100 people who didn't know what to say. The carpet was industrial beige, worn thin in paths between the entrance and the viewing room, between the viewing room and the little kitchenette where volunteers kept replacing coffee pots and arranging cookies on paper plates that would curl at the edges from the steam. I'd been greeting people for 3 hours, shaking hands that were either too soft or too firm, accepting casseroles I'd never eat, their foil tops reflecting the fluorescent lights like tiny mirrors, nodding at platitudes about Elizabeth being in a better place now, or at peace, or watching over you. As if passing were a promotion instead of an ending. As if she'd chosen this instead of having it forced on her by cells that turned traitor in her own body. Vivian Helms, my daughter-in-law, wore black that probably cost more than my first car. Some kind of designer thing with clean lines and strategic draping that made her look like she was posing for a magazine spread instead of mourning her husband's mother. She stood near the guest book with Ryan, my son, their heads bent together like conspirators in a Renaissance painting, the kind where everyone's plotting murder or inheritance or both. That's when I heard it. Her voice carried just enough for my ears, pitched low but not low enough. She'd never been good at volume control. Always thought if she kept her voice down, the words themselves wouldn't matter. Always wrong about that. "Everyone's here. Go change the locks on his house." The words hit me like a wrench to the gut. Clean and hard and specific. Not, "we should think about," or "maybe later we could." Just a command, delivered with the casual certainty of someone who'd already thought it through, planned it out, maybe even had the locksmith on speed dial waiting for her call. Ryan glanced around the room. His eyes skipped over the clusters of mourners, past the flower arrangements that were already starting to wilt in the overheated air, past the table with the memory board covered in photos of Elizabeth at every age. Photos I'd taken, most of them. Elizabeth laughing on the Oregon coast. Elizabeth holding baby Ryan. Elizabeth at Emily's college graduation. A whole life in glossy 4x6s pinned to foam board. He caught my eye for half a second, and something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe. Or just recognition that I was still present, still breathing, still inconveniently alive and aware. Then he looked away and nodded once. Sharp, decisive. The kind of nod that meant a decision had been made, and there was no going back. He slipped out the side door, the one that led to the parking lot. I watched him go, cataloging the details the way I'd cataloged parts on a workbench for 40 years. Blue blazer, no tie, dress shoes that clicked on the linoleum. Keys already in his hand before he reached the exit. Pre-planned, pre-arranged. This wasn't impulse. This was strategy. I turned back to the condolence line, fixed my face into something appropriately bereaved, let the mask settle over whatever I was actually feeling, which was nothing yet, just a strange, numb awareness that something was happening and I needed to pay attention. The next person in line was Mrs. Patterson from 3 streets over, the one who'd always borrowed Elizabeth's hedge trimmer and never returned it. She grabbed my hands with her papery fingers and told me Elizabeth was with the angels now. I thanked her, moved to the next person, and the next. Inside, my brain was already working, sorting facts like bolts in a parts tray. Vivian's whisper, Ryan's exit, the timing. Everyone's here, meaning I was accounted for, occupied, unable to interfere, unable to stop whatever they were doing right now, at this exact moment, while I stood in this overheated room shaking hands with people I barely knew. 20 minutes crawled by like hours. I greeted Elizabeth's cousin from Portland, who I'd met exactly twice in 42 years. Her book club friends who kept crying and hugging me and saying things like, "She talked about you all the time," as if that should make it hurt less instead of more. My old supervisor from the shop who'd retired 5 years before me and looked ancient now, shrunken inside his suit like his bones had given up. I accepted their sympathies, their memories, their inadequate words. The whole time, part of my mind was on the clock, counting minutes, wondering how long it took to change a lock. Not long if you knew what you were doing. 15 minutes for a professional. Even less if you'd hired someone who did this daily, who had the tools ready, who could drill out a cylinder and install a replacement in the time it took to drink a cup of coffee. Ryan came back through the main entrance. The color had drained from his face, leaving him pale and gray under the fluorescent lights, like week-old meat. His tie was loosened, top button undone, even though he'd been perfectly put together when he left. Sweat darkened his collar, despite the aggressive air conditioning that was making the older mourners pull their jackets tighter. Vivian grabbed his elbow immediately, pulled him aside near the display of Elizabeth's favorite flowers. White roses, she'd always said, because they were classic and didn't try too hard. Vivian whispered something sharp and urgent, her perfectly made-up face tight with what might have been concern or might have been anger. Hard to tell with her. Everything was performance. Ryan shook his head, kept shaking it like he could dislodge whatever he'd seen, whatever had scared him enough to drain the color from his face. "There's something strange," he said, loud enough for the people nearby to hear. Then quieter, just to Vivian. But I had good ears, always had. "The safe! It's open!" I felt something click into place, another piece of the puzzle sliding into position with an almost audible snap. I watched my daughter Emily appear from the direction of the bathrooms. She moved with purpose, cutting through the crowd like she had somewhere to be, something to do more important than mourning her mother. A man followed 2 steps behind her, Patterson, the loan officer from Coastal Trust, where Elizabeth and I had banked for 30 years, where Emily worked in wealth management, advising rich people on how to get richer, how to shelter their money from taxes and ex-spouses and anyone else who might have a legitimate claim to it. I'd seen them by the guest book earlier, during that first hour, when the room was still filling up and people were signing their names in the book nobody would ever read. They'd been shaking hands, leaning close to talk over the piped-in music, something soft and instrumental that was probably meant to be comforting but just made everything feel fake and staged, like we were all actors in a play about grief instead of people actually experiencing it. Patterson had passed her something. I'd seen the movement, the quick hand-to-hand transfer, a business card maybe, or something else, something folded small enough to fit in a palm. At the time, I'd thought it was odd, but not suspicious. Now I was reconsidering everything. The pieces were lining up like a blueprint in my head, but I kept my face neutral, kept nodding at the mourners, kept playing the grieving widower who was too devastated to notice anything beyond his own loss. Let them think I was broken. Let them think I was easy. A mechanic learns patience. You don't force a seized bolt. You don't crank on a stubborn nut until you strip the threads and turn a simple job into an expensive nightmare. You wait. Apply penetrating oil. Let chemistry and physics do the work. Come back when the metal's ready to move. I could wait. "Dad?" Emily touched my arm. Her hand was cold despite the warmth of the room. She wore navy blue instead of black. Respectful but not dramatic, she'd explained when I'd noticed that morning. Understated pearls that had been Elizabeth's, passed down from her grandmother who'd survived the Depression and never trusted banks. "Are you okay? You should sit down. You've been standing for hours." "I'm fine." I squeezed her hand, felt the bones shift under my grip. When had she gotten so thin? Or had I just stopped noticing? "Just going to grab my jacket from the car. Getting cold in here." It wasn't cold. The heating system was running full blast, fighting the November chill outside. Probably 75 degrees in the viewing room. But nobody questioned it. Grief made you say strange things, do strange things. They expected me to be disoriented, confused, not quite tracking reality properly. I used that. Let them see what they expected to see. Nobody stopped me from leaving. The parking lot was half empty now. Most people had paid their respects and left, returning to their own lives and problems. Grateful it wasn't their spouse in that coffin, grateful they could go home, have dinner, watch TV, and pretend that the end wasn't waiting for them, too. The sun was setting early, the way it does in November, painting everything in shades of gray and orange that might have been beautiful if I'd been in the mood to notice beauty. Elizabeth's Buick still sat in its spot near the back, untouched since the hospice nurse had driven it back 3 days ago. I'd been meaning to move it, but I couldn't bring myself to sit in her seat, adjust her mirrors, smell whatever remained of her in that enclosed space. The car was hers. Getting in it felt like violation. I climbed into my truck instead, started the engine, sat there for a minute with my hands on the wheel, feeling the vibration of the idle, centering myself in something mechanical and predictable. Engines made sense, fuel and air and spark and combustion. No hidden motives, no betrayal, just physics. Then I drove home. The drive took 12 minutes. I knew because I counted everyone, watching the digital clock on the dashboard tick over. 12 minutes through familiar streets I'd driven 10,000 times. Past the hardware store where I'd bought supplies for 40 years, paint and lumber and the good screws that didn't strip. Past the diner where Elizabeth and I used to get breakfast on Sundays, sitting in the same booth every time because she said it had the best light. Past the elementary school where both kids had gone, where the playground equipment still looked exactly the same, even though it had to be violating at least a dozen modern safety codes. Home. The word felt strange now. Hollow, like saying wife when you meant widow. The meaning had shifted, and I hadn't caught up yet. I pulled into the driveway beside Elizabeth's Buick. No, wait. I was driving my truck. Elizabeth's Buick was still at the funeral home. My truck was here in the driveway where I'd left it this morning when I'd driven her car to the wake because it seemed wrong to leave it sitting unused while mine got all the miles. My head felt fuzzy, thoughts tangling. Grief doing strange things to memory, to sequence, to basic logic. I sat in my truck. I was sure it was my truck now, the worn steering wheel cover that Elizabeth had complained about for years, the coffee stain on the passenger seat from that time Emily had spilled her latte, and stared at the house we'd bought in 1986. 2-story Craftsman, blue-gray siding, white trim. I'd repainted it every 7 years like clockwork. Replaced the roof in 2003 when the first leaks appeared. Rebuilt the front porch in 2011 after the posts started rotting from the inside out, invisible damage that could have collapsed under someone's weight if I hadn't caught it in time. Every nail, every board, every careful measurement. I knew this house like I knew my own hands. Better, maybe. I'd built and rebuilt parts of it. Added the deck in 94, finished the basement in 99, rewired the kitchen in 2007 when the old knob and tube finally had to go. This house was me, my work, my time, my life. The front door looked normal from here. Same wreath Elizabeth had hung last Christmas. Faded now, the fake pine needles brittle and dusty, but neither of us had the heart to take it down. It was the last thing she'd hung before the diagnosis. Same brass kickplate I'd installed in '98 when the bottom panel started to split, and I'd gotten tired of looking at the crack every time I came home. Same welcome mat that said home in letters worn almost invisible by years of boots and weather. I walked up the 3 concrete steps, each one poured by hand back when we'd first moved in. Reached for my keys, the ring heavy with 40 years of accumulated keys to houses and cars and padlocks and storage units. The cylinder was new. My hand stopped mid-reach, frozen like someone had hit pause on a video. I bent closer, squinting in the fading light. The brass was different, brighter, shinier, no patina of age and use. This wasn't the gentle gleam of old metal that had been touched 10,000 times. This was fresh from the factory, unmarked by human contact. The keyway was wrong, narrower, more modern. This wasn't the Schlager cylinder I'd installed myself in 1986, the one I'd chosen specifically because Schlager was reliable and serviceable and I could rekey it myself if needed. The one I'd maintained and lubricated every spring like clockwork, same as I maintained everything else I owned. This was something else, something electronic and alien, and above it, mounted where yesterday there'd been nothing but smooth painted wood, a smart lock keypad blinked a tiny red LED. Digital, electronic, wrong in every possible way. I pulled out my key ring, found the house key, brass, worn smooth on the edges from decades in my pocket, the bow stamped with master from the blank I'd used. Cut it myself on my bench grinder, taking my time, getting the depth exactly right because why pay a locksmith $8 when you could do it yourself in 10 minutes? I tried to slide it into the cylinder. It didn't fit. The key wouldn't even enter. Wrong keyway entirely, like trying to put a flathead screwdriver in a Phillips screw. Just fundamentally incompatible. I tried the mechanical backup, the spare I'd cut myself 15 years ago when Ryan was still in high school and kept losing his keys. Same result. The metal hit the face of the lock and stopped, unable to penetrate, blocked, rejected. I stood on my own front porch, locked out of my own house, holding keys that didn't work anymore, and felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. Not anger, yet, not grief, just clarity. Perfect crystalline clarity that cut through the fog of the last 3 days and showed me exactly what was happening. They'd changed my locks while I was mourning my wife, while I was shaking hands and accepting casseroles and thanking people for their inadequate condolences. Someone, Ryan, probably, or whoever he'd hired, had come to my house and removed the cylinder I'd installed with my own hands and replaced it with something electronic and impersonal and fundamentally wrong. They'd locked me out of my own life. I walked back to the truck, popped the glove box. Inside, under the registration and the insurance card and the emergency flashlight that probably needed new batteries and the spare napkins from McDonald's, I found the envelope. Elizabeth had given it to me 3 weeks before she passed. I walked back to the car, the late light folding itself across the windshield, and opened the glove box. The familiar click of the latch sounded louder than it should have. My hands were steady, or at least I wanted to believe they were, when I pulled out the envelope. Elizabeth had given it to me 3 weeks before she passed. We'd been sitting in the chemo ward then, surrounded by the low mechanical sigh of machines that never seemed to rest. Her hand had felt like paper in mine, bones pressing gently against skin, the IV drip clicking out her remaining time in small, merciless increments. She'd slipped the manila envelope into my palm with more intent than strength. "If the whispers start," she'd said, voice thin but sure, "open blueprint." I'd asked her what that meant, and she'd smiled, that crooked, almost defiant smile that never reached her eyes anymore. "You'll know," she'd said, and I did now. Inside, photocopies, carefully collated, corner-stapled and labeled in her tidy paralegal handwriting. Elizabeth had always trusted documentation more than people. She'd been a paralegal before Ryan was born, and she understood how paper could outlast truth, or protect it. The first document was our living trust. I skimmed the familiar legalese until I found the part she'd marked in yellow: undue influence, a clause that froze the distribution of assets if coercion or manipulation was suspected within 30 days of her passing. Typical Elizabeth: precise, deliberate, foresighted. The second, HOA bylaws, Section 7.3, emergency access protocols, every homeowner's nuisance until you needed it. Any lock replacement that impeded first responder entry required written consent and notification. Violations? Grounds for immediate reversal and fines? The third item wasn't legal at all. Just a sticky note, written in her small, looping hand. You fix things. Fix this the way you fix a jammed turbine, one bolt at a time. I sat there for a long moment in the dim hush of the car, the engine ticking as it cooled. Then I began taking photos, every page, every margin note, every highlighted clause. I'd learned a long time ago that evidence wasn't what you found, it was what you could prove. When I stepped out, the air had cooled. I photographed the new lock, the keypad, and the vendor sticker still clinging to the strike plate. Secure Home Solutions, installed today at 2:47 p.m. While everyone was at the wake. While I'd been shaking hands and murmuring thanks for casseroles I'd never eat. There was even a pink carbon receipt taped under the keypad housing contractor habit. Authorized by Vivian Helms. Paid by a credit card ending in 4782. I took pictures of that too. And then, almost hidden under the frame, the tech's temporary bypass code, a 6-digit guest access good for 24 hours. I memorized it. Didn't use it. Not yet. I got back in the car and drove toward Ryan's house. The wake had spilled over there, the neat suburban street littered with cars and plastic cups. Through the open windows came the low hum of conversation, polite, practiced grief. Ryan saw me the moment I stepped out. His shoulders tensed. Vivian was already beside him, polished and composed, like she'd been rehearsing this. "Dad," Ryan started. "We were just—" "The locks," I said. I kept my voice even. "You changed them. It's for your safety," he said quickly, glancing toward Vivian. "You're not thinking clearly. We didn't want—" I showed him my phone. HOA Section 7.3, you violated emergency access protocols. Ryan flushed. "That's a technicality." "It's the rule," I said. Vivian stepped forward, chin lifted. "William, this is about protecting Ryan's brand. Our brand. The house, the estate, it's all under scrutiny. We can't have—" "Can't have what?" I asked softly. "The grieving widower in his own home. Can't have you doing something rash." Her tone carried that corporate calm that always sounded one breath away from threat. "Emily told us you've been slipping, forgetting things, leaving the stove on. We're concerned." Emily. My daughter who hadn't been home in 6 months. I looked at Ryan. "You believe that?" He didn't answer. Didn't look at me. I slid my phone back into my pocket. "I'm going home," I said, "through the front door." "Dad, move." Something in my voice made them step aside. Not fear, recognition, the old authority, the one that didn't need raising. I drove back, headlights carving through dusk, and parked at the curb. My hands didn't shake anymore when I called the non-emergency line. Officer Brandt arrived 20 minutes later. Young, but solid. The kind of officer who still thought the badge meant something. "So they changed the locks while you were at your wife's wake," he said, jotting notes. "Yes." "Proof of ownership?" I handed him the deed, the trust, the HOA paperwork. He took photos with his county-issued tablet, methodical. "And they claimed it was for your safety?" "That's what they said." He nodded. "We can do a civil standby while you enter. I can't make them give you keys, but I can make sure they don't stop you." "I have the guest code," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "Sloppy installer." "Very." Inside, the house smelled wrong. Like perfume that didn't belong, like order rearranged by unfamiliar hands. The furniture had been shifted just enough to feel foreign. The balance of the room was off, the kind of wrong only someone who'd lived there 30 years could notice. Then I saw the open wall safe. Brant followed my gaze. Yours? Yes. Nothing seemed missing. Passport, jewelry, cash, all where they should be. But on the top shelf sat a sealed envelope, neatly centered. To Ryan, in handwriting I didn't recognize. Don't touch it, Brant said. Wouldn't dream of it. I took a photo instead. Then I noticed the rolled-up floor runner by the study door. Elizabeth's nurse always rolled up rugs, standard hospice trip prevention, which meant she'd been here. Recently. Did she know the combination? Brant asked. She might have. Elizabeth trusted her. He noted that down, then wandered to the router blinking softly on the shelf. Can we check the device log? It's my network, I said. I'll pull it up. At the dining table, I opened my laptop and logged in. The router history painted the picture. 2:51 p.m. First connection, Vivian's code. 3:17 p.m. Unknown guest access created. 8 minutes of connectivity. Deleted at 3:25 p.m., right in the middle of the wake. I turned the screen toward Brant. He photographed it. There's your evidence of unauthorized entry, he said. File a complaint with the HOA and maybe a trespass notice. I will. He snapped his tablet shut. And Mr. Helms, change your locks back. Do it by the book. Don't give them a foothold. When he left, the silence felt heavier than before. The house was still mine, but it felt like something had slipped, just slightly, out of alignment. Elizabeth's paintings watched from the walls, her books lined neatly as if she'd just stepped out for air. The coffee table, the same one we'd picked together in 1987, bore faint scratches from the years we'd lived, argued, and laughed around it. They'd tried to take that from me, the life we built bolt by bolt, clause by clause. They'd failed, for now. But I knew they'd be back. Maya Jennings met me at the Highway 14 diner the next morning, the kind of place where time stuck to the vinyl seats and coffee refills came without asking. A freight train rumbled somewhere beyond the hills, its horn cutting through the early fog. She slid into view through the glass door, hair pulled back, courthouse badge clipped to her tote. Maya had been part of our lives since before Elizabeth and I had a mortgage, before the gray in our hair and the silence between words. Best friend, maid of honor, godmother to Emily, and now a lifeline I hadn't known I'd need. I'm so sorry, William. She hugged me like she meant it, the way people do when they've run out of better words. I should have been at the wake. You had your reasons. Elizabeth asked me not to come, she said quietly, taking the seat across from me. She said if things went the way she expected, I needed to stay clean. No appearance of collusion. The waitress, same one who'd been working there since the Clinton administration, brought coffee, left 2 creamers and one of those little plastic tubs of butter that never melt right. When she was gone, I leaned forward. What did she tell you? Maya set her purse aside and pulled a thick manila folder from inside. The edges were worn, corners slightly bent. It had been handled. 3 weeks ago, she came to my office, filed a revocation notice for any power of attorney Ryan might produce. She opened to the first page, tapped the seal. It's dated and notarized. If he shows up waving papers, this nullifies them. You're still in control of your affairs. I stared at the signature, Elizabeth's name, shaky but deliberate. She knew, I said. She knew, Maya echoed. Then she flipped to another document. She also filed a protective amendment to your trust. If there's any indication of undue influence within 30 days of her passing, all asset distribution freezes automatically. Probate judge gets involved. I'm listed as trustee pro tem until the court decides otherwise. Her tone was businesslike, but her eyes were soft. She wasn't telling me this as a clerk. She was telling me as a friend who had already mourned once and didn't want to do it again. I looked down at the signatures again, Elizabeth's, the witnesses from the oncology ward. The ink was faded around the edges, as if someone had pressed too hard, trying to make it permanent. "How do I trigger the review?" "You file evidence with me," she said. "I bring it to the judge. He issues a temporary freeze until the investigation runs its course." She hesitated. "But William, you need to tread carefully. Ryan and Vivian have counsel, PR, money. They'll move fast, and they'll play dirty." "It's already dirty," I said. "It's going to get uglier." I told her everything. The locks, the HOA clause, the router logs, the envelope in the safe. She wrote it all down in her courtroom perfect script, page after page, never interrupting. When I finished, she sat back, thoughtful. "The envelope worries me," she said at last. "If it's a forged directive, something granting Ryan authority over the estate, they could try to use it as leverage. Elizabeth wouldn't have left that kind of thing unguarded." No, she wouldn't. Maya tapped the edge of her pen against the tabletop, a slow metronome of thought. Which means someone else put it there, someone who knew the combination. "The nurse," I said automatically. "Did Elizabeth trust her?" I thought about Gwen, calm, steady hands, soft voice, always on time, always kind. She'd brought chamomile tea one afternoon and sat with Elizabeth when I couldn't bear to. Elizabeth had smiled more in that hour than in the rest of the week. "Yes," I said finally. "Elizabeth trusted her." "Then maybe the envelope isn't a weapon," Maya said. "Maybe it's bait, something to draw them out, to make them act before they're ready." Before I could answer, my phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up with a message from my bank, beneficiary inquiry on account. 7834, processed at 3:15 p.m. Contact us if you did not authorize. I showed it to her. "That's your TOD account," she said immediately. "Transfer on arrival. Who else has access?" "No one," I said. "Except Emily." Maya's expression tightened. "She works at that bank, doesn't she?" "She does." "She accessed your records?" "Looks that way. During the wake." Her jaw clenched. "That's a compliance breach. Conflict of interest, misuse of internal systems. If you report it, she'll get suspended," I said. "Possibly fired," Maya finished, voice flat. "Your move, William. How far do you want to take this?" I stirred my coffee, though I didn't need to. The spoon clicked softly against the cup, a small sound in a loud world. Outside, the sun had burned away the fog, and the parking lot shimmered with heat. Trucks rumbled past toward the docks. Cars carried people to offices, classrooms, places where life stayed ordinary. Mine hadn't been ordinary in 3 days, and it wasn't going to be again. I looked up from the swirling black coffee. "All the way," I said. The marina shimmered under a hard noon sun, the kind that bleached everything: sky, water, memory. The air smelled of diesel, salt, and sunscreen. Gulls traced lazy arcs above the docks, their cries too sharp, too alive. I parked by the fence, engine idling a moment longer than necessary, then shut it off and sat still. Across the lot, the masts bobbed in uneven rhythm, a field of silver and white, like an army waiting for orders. The Marina Bay Cabins LLC sign was still there, bolted to the harbor master's office. It looked freshly painted. Ryan's handiwork, no doubt, or Vivian's. Their brand was polish, mine was permanence. The LLC owned a single slip, D17. Prime real estate, right beside the fuel dock, visible from the Boardwalk Cafe, where tourists like to take photos of sunsets and someone else's boats. Ryan had used it for years, first for his fishing trips, then for networking, whining clients, weaving them into the scaffolding of his staging business. Vivian had used it too. Lifestyle shoots, hashtags, the curated illusion of success. Neither of them owned it. I did. I knew because Elizabeth had made sure of it. The second envelope, the one I found that morning behind our wedding photo, had contained the truth. I'd taken the frame down to straighten it, habit more than sentiment, and there it was, a flat packet taped to the backing, sealed in the same cream stationery Elizabeth used for birthday letters. Inside, an operating agreement, a membership certificate, a transfer clause. Elizabeth had restructured the LLC 6 months before she passed. If evidence of undue influence appeared within 30 days of her passing, full control reverted to me. No arbitration, no appeal. She had anticipated every move, planned her defense from the grave. Tony Kovac, the marina manager, was in the harbor master's office when I arrived. The small room smelled of coffee gone cold and marine varnish. His desk was buried in paperwork, receipts, and a coffee mug that read, "Number 1 Granddad." "William," he said, startled. "Jesus, I heard about Elizabeth. I'm so sorry." "Thanks, Tony." I set the documents on his desk. "I need to talk to you about slip D17. He frowned. "That's Ryan's slip, isn't it?" "It's the LLC's slip, and I'm the controlling member now." Tony shifted in his chair. "Look, I don't want to get in the middle of—" "Did he sublet it?" I asked. He hesitated. "Yeah, last month. Some guy named Hutchins, hedge fund type. Paid cash, 3 months up front. The lease prohibits subletting without written authorization from the controlling member." Tony winced. "Ryan said you'd approved it." I pushed the papers toward him. "These are dated last week. I became controlling member yesterday. Ryan didn't have authority when he made that deal." He scanned the pages slowly, lips moving. When he looked up, his face had the weary resignation of someone who'd seen enough family wars fought over property lines and inheritances. "So the sublet's void," he said. "The sublet's void," I confirmed. "I'm reclaiming the slip effective immediately." "William, it's my slip, Tony. I'm exercising my rights under the lease." He sighed, then nodded. "Okay, but I'm not going to be the one to tell Ryan." "You don't have to," I said. "I will." The dock creaked under my boots as I walked out to D17. The tide was on its way out, water slapping lazily against hulls. The slip was empty. Hutchins must have taken the boat out for the day. I'd come prepared. From the back seat of my truck, I'd grabbed a new set of berth lines and a laminated placard I'd printed that morning at the FedEx across from the courthouse. Simple text, bold black font, private, Marina LLC members only. I knotted the lines cleanly, checked the cleats, and hung the placard. The sun reflected off the water in white shards. For the first time in 3 days, something about the world aligned. A bolt tightened, a system restored. Then I heard footsteps. Fast, angry. "What the hell are you doing?" Ryan's voice, ragged, furious, already recording on his phone before he'd even stopped moving. I turned, slow. "Reclaiming LLC property, the sublet's void, lease violation." He stopped 3 feet from me, camera raised like a weapon. "That's my slip." "No," I said. "It's the LLC's slip, and I control the LLC." I held up the documents so the phone caught them. "All legal, all filed. If you think otherwise, hire a lawyer." A few heads turned. Dock hands, weekend sailors, a couple with melting ice cream cones. The air felt heavier, charged. "You can't do this," Ryan's voice cracked. "That sublet's worth 15 grand. "Then you should have gotten authorization," I said evenly. Vivian appeared at the top of the ramp, heels clicking on the planks. She looked like she'd come straight from a shoot. Designer blouse, perfect hair, anger sharp enough to cut through sunlight. "William," she said, voice low but vibrating with contempt. "You're really going to humiliate your own son? In public?" "I'm enforcing a lease agreement." "This is harassment," she snapped. "This is ownership." For a moment, none of us moved. The dock swayed slightly beneath us, the sound of the harbor filling the silence. Ropes groaning, flags snapping in the wind, someone's radio playing faint country music from a nearby boat. Then I walked past them, documents still in hand, not looking back. Behind me, I heard Vivian's voice rising. "Can't believe posting this. Absolutely unacceptable behavior. By the time I reached my truck, my phone buzzed. A text from Maya. Marina video already circulating. You're trending on local Facebook groups. I looked out at the water, at the space I'd reclaimed, the piece of ground Elizabeth had set aside like a secret insurance policy. Good. Let them see. Let them all see. The next morning, I got an email from Vivian's brand sponsor, a high-end activewear company called Elevation Athletic. They'd CC'd her. Ms. Helms, we're placing your partnership on hold pending review. Recent social media activity suggests family conflict and potential harassment concerns. Elevation maintains a positive aspirational brand image. We'll reconnect in 60 days to reassess. I forwarded it to Maya with no comment. She called me immediately. Did you send that video to the sponsor? No, I didn't have to. It's viral in the boating community. Probably someone else flagged it. Vivian's going to think you did. Let her. That afternoon, Emily called. Her voice was shaky. Dad, we need to talk. I'm listening. HR called me in today. There's a compliance review. They said someone reported a potential conflict of interest violation. They're reassigning me pending investigation. What violation? Accessing family member financial information without proper authorization. She was crying now. Dad, I was just checking if the accounts were in order. Elizabeth had restructured the LLC 6 months before she passed. I thought... You thought you'd see what I had, see what you'd inherit. Silence. It wasn't like that, she whispered. Then what was it like? Vivian said, she said Mom wanted us to help you, that you couldn't handle things alone, that we needed to be prepared to step in. And you believed her. Mom was dying. I wasn't thinking clearly. I sat in my truck in the marina parking lot and watched the gulls circle the dock. Emily, I love you. You're my daughter. But you made a choice. You chose Vivian's word over mine. You accessed my private financial information without permission during your mother's wake. That's not helping. That's something else. What do you want me to say? I want you to think about what you did, really think about it, and then decide who you want to be. I hung up. An hour later, Maya called again. The smart lock vendor just sent their audit report. The unknown guest pass was created using an account registered to V. Helms Marketing Services, then deleted 8 minutes later. Can they testify to that? They can provide certified logs, timestamps, account info, IP address, everything you need for a civil conversion claim. What's the timeline? File within 30 days of the incident. We're at 72 hours now. File it. William, this is going to nuke your relationship with Ryan and Vivian. They nuked it first. I'm just making it official. That evening, I drove to Ryan's staging warehouse. I didn't go inside, just circled the block, looked at the building from different angles. It was an old brick structure near the industrial port, the kind of place that changed hands every few years when the latest business venture collapsed. I'd helped Ryan lease it 2 years ago, co-signed the papers when his credit wasn't quite good enough. He'd promised it was temporary, just until the staging business got established. Now it was his base of operations. Inventory storage, office space, photography studio, all in one questionably zoned building with questionable safety standards. I parked across the street and pulled up the city permit database on my phone, searched the address. Commercial occupancy permit, expired 4 months ago. Fire suppression system inspection, overdue by 6 months. Emergency exit signage, not up to current code. Unpermitted modifications. Storage racks exceeding load-bearing specifications without structural engineering approval. I took screenshots of everything. Then I filed a formal safety complaint with the city building inspector. Anonymous. Detailed. Included photographs I'd taken of the exterior, showing the blocked fire exit and the overloaded storage racks visible through the warehouse bay windows. The inspector would have to investigate. That was the law. And when he did, Ryan's warehouse would fail. Badly. I drove home, reheated leftover casserole someone had brought to the wake, and ate it in front of the TV without tasting anything. Elizabeth's voice in my head, one bolt at a time. I was turning bolts. The machine was starting to move. The HOA hearing was scheduled for Thursday evening, 1 week after Elizabeth's passing. I arrived early, took a seat in the back of the community center. The room smelled like floor wax and old coffee. Ryan and Vivian showed up 10 minutes later, accompanied by a lawyer in an expensive suit. They didn't look at me. The HOA president, Dale Morrison, called the meeting to order. He was a retired insurance adjuster, methodical and humorless. First item, lock change complaint at 2847 Cascade Drive. Mr. Helms, you filed? I stood up. Yes. And you're contesting a lock change performed by your son, Ryan Helms, and his wife, Vivian Helms? I am. They changed the locks without my authorization while I was at my wife's wake. It violated HOA bylaw 7.3 regarding emergency access. The lawyer stood. Mr. Morrison, my clients acted out of genuine concern for Mr. Helms's safety and well-being. His wife had just passed away. They were worried he might harm himself or make poor decisions in his grief. The lock change was a protective measure. Did they have documentation of this concern? Morrison asked. Medical evaluation, psychiatrist's recommendation? They had observations from family members. Hearsay. I kept my voice level. I have documentation that the lock change was unauthorized, violated HOA rules, and was performed using a guest code that was created and deleted during the installation. I also have vendor logs showing the account used belonged to Vivian Helms' business. I handed Morrison the printed documentation. He read through it slowly. The bylaw is clear, he said finally. Lock changes that affect emergency access require written owner consent and 24-hour notice to HOA security. Neither was provided. I'm issuing an injunction requiring restoration of original lock hardware within 48 hours. Vivian stood up. This is ridiculous. We were trying to help him. Ma'am, sit down. Morrison's voice was flat. The ruling stands. Original locks restored by Saturday at 5 p.m., or you'll face daily fines of $500 until compliance. The lawyer tried to argue. Morrison shut him down. As we filed out, Ryan grabbed my arm. Are you happy now? You're destroying your own family. I looked at his hand on my arm. He let go. I didn't change the locks, Ryan. You did. Outside, I got a text from Maya. Ballroom at Cascade Country Club is available Sunday at 2 p.m. Confirmed your reservation. Good luck. The Country Club. The same place Ryan and Vivian had held their after-wake photo opportunity, posing with community leaders and local influencers, building their brand on Elizabeth's passing. I was going to use their own stage against them. The next morning, the city building inspector showed up at Ryan's warehouse. By noon, the warehouse was evacuated. By evening, it was shut down pending corrections for multiple safety violations. Ryan called me, screaming, "You did this! You reported me!" I don't know what you're talking about. The inspector said it was an anonymous complaint with detailed photographs. Who else would have those? Anyone who walked by your building and looked through the windows. Maybe you should have kept your exits clear. This is going to cost me $50,000 to fix. Then you should have maintained your permits. I'm going to sue you for harassment. Good luck proving I did anything except exercise my rights as a property owner and a concerned citizen. I hung up. Maya called an hour later. The notices are all served. Vivian received the HOA violation and conversion claim. Ryan got the marina breach notice and lease termination. Emily has copies of the compliance inquiry from her own HR department. And the ballroom. Ready. I've notified them all. Family reading of Elizabeth's estate wishes Sunday at 2 p.m. Formal notice they have to attend or forfeit their say in proceedings. Will they come? They'll come. They think they're going to hear distribution amounts. They think they're going to get what they've been waiting for. Good. I spent Saturday morning in my garage organizing tools. Elizabeth had always said I turned to work when I needed to think. She was right. The smart lock got delivered to the porch that afternoon. Original cylinder restored, courtesy of the HOA's approved locksmith. I watched them install it, tested the key, paid the bill. My house, my door, my lock. That night, I opened Elizabeth's final letter, the one that had been in the estate envelope marked "Read at the family meeting." It was short, 3 paragraphs in her handwriting. I read it twice, memorizing every word. Sunday morning, I put on my good suit, the one I'd worn to Ryan's wedding, to Emily's college graduation, to Elizabeth's funeral. Today it was armor. The country club ballroom had tall windows overlooking the golf course, crown molding, a small stage with a podium. Exactly as pretentious as I remembered. I arrived first, set up 3 neat stacks of documents on the podium, made sure my phone was charged, volume up. Ryan and Vivian arrived at 1:55 p.m. She was wearing something designer. He was in a suit that probably cost more than my truck. They sat in the front row, backs rigid. Emily came in at 1:58 p.m. looking like she hadn't slept. She sat 3 chairs away from Ryan. Maya stood by the door, guardian and witness. At exactly 2 p.m. I walked to the podium. "Thank you for coming," I said. No emotion in my voice, just facts. Elizabeth asked me to read this if circumstances required it. They do. I unfolded her letter. Her handwriting wavered in places, strong in others. "To my family," I read. "If you're hearing this letter, it means the whispers became actions. It means someone tried to push William out of his own life, his own home, thinking he'd be too grief-stricken or too weak to fight back." Vivian shifted in her seat. "I knew this might happen. I saw the signs in the last months. The questions about assets. The concern that felt more like calculation. The way certain people started talking about William's future as though it belonged to them." I looked up, made eye contact with each of them. "So I took steps, legal steps, proper steps. William has always been the patient one, the one who fixes things carefully. If they push you out of your own doorway, you know what to do." I set the letter down, picked up the first stack of documents. "Vivian," I held up the vendor audit. "This is Secure Home Solutions certified log showing an unknown guest access pass was created at my address using your business account. Then deleted 8 minutes later. Also attached, itemized bill for unauthorized lock change services, payable to you personally under Civil Code 1708, conversion of property without consent. Total, $4,300. I slid it across to her. She didn't touch it. Second stack. "Ryan." I held up the marina documents. "LLC authority transfer, effective upon Elizabeth's passing. Marina lease violation notice for unauthorized sublet. Warehouse safety citations from city building inspection, all public record. You're welcome to contest any of it in court." His face had gone white. Third stack. "Emily." I held up the bank compliance paperwork. HR conflict of interest investigation, triggered by my subject access request, showing terminal queries on my accounts during non-business hours. The law requires banks to investigate potential violations. I didn't report you. Your own activity logs did. She was crying silently. I walked to the front of the stage, looked down at all of them. "Elizabeth loved you, all of you. But she loved me too. And she knew that when she was gone, you'd see opportunity instead of loss. So she built a blueprint, a way for me to fight back without breaking any rules, without crossing any lines, just using the system the way it's meant to be used." My phone buzzed. I glanced at it. Text from Tony at the marina. "HOA security is at your house per your instruction. Ready when you are." I showed them the screen. Right now, HOA security is restoring the original cylinder on my front door. The injunction was granted. The lock you changed is being removed. My house is mine again. Vivian stood up. "You can't." "I already did." I walked off the stage, past all of them, out into the bright Sunday afternoon. Maya followed. "That was surgical. It's not done yet. We drove to my house in separate cars. Ryan's BMW was already there, parked sideways across the driveway. He must have left right after me. I pulled up on the street, walked up the front path. The HOA security guard and the locksmith were finishing. Original brass cylinder, same one I'd installed 20 years ago. They'd even saved the old strike plate. Ryan stood on the porch, fists clenched. "You're not doing this." "It's already done." The locksmith handed me 2 keys. "All set, Mr. Helms. Original hardware restored per HOA order." I thanked him. He and the security guard walked to their vehicles. Now it was just me and Ryan on the porch, and Vivian, who'd pulled up behind him, phone out, live streaming. Perfect. I held up the first key. "This is mine. This house is mine. The locks are mine. Everything here belongs to me." Ryan's jaw was tight. "This is insane. Mom would be ashamed of you." "Your mother planned this." I pulled out the final envelope from my jacket, the one I'd been saving. Estate directive, signed and witnessed. Full operational control of the cabin LLC transfers to me upon evidence of undue influence within 30 days of her passing. That includes all rental revenues, all property decisions, all marina access. His face drained of color. "The cabin brings in $8,000 a month. You've been using that money to subsidize your lifestyle, your boat slips, your warehouse, Vivian's brand expenses, all flowing from an LLC I now control." Vivian stopped filming. "You can't take that from us." "I'm not taking anything. I'm reclaiming what was always mine." I pulled out another document. "Converted property claim naming you, Vivian, for the unauthorized lock order. Notice of trespass for any further entry without written permission. Both filed with the county clerk this morning." "This is harassment," she screamed. The security guard had paused by his car, watching. I kept my voice level. "This is consequences. You changed a lock. I changed the house." Ryan stepped forward, hand out. "Dad, please. Can we just talk about this like adults? Adults don't change locks during funerals. We were scared for you." "No, you weren't. You were scared I'd be coherent enough to stop you from taking everything Elizabeth and I built." He reached for my arm. I didn't move. His hand stopped in midair. "Give me your key," I said. "What?" "The key to my house. The one they gave you with the smart lock. Give it to me." He hesitated, then dug in his pocket, pulled out a silver key on a leather fob, held it out. I took it, dropped it in my pocket. Then I turned to the door, put my original key in the restored cylinder, turned it slowly, feeling the familiar click of the mechanism. The door swung inward. Ryan moved to follow me in. I put my palm on the doorframe, full span, fingertips to thumb base, solid contact. "No, this is my mother's house. This is my house." I didn't raise my voice, didn't need to. "You're not welcome here." He tried to push past. My arm didn't move. 40 years of mechanics work, holding torque wrenches, breaking seized bolts, carrying transmissions. My palm might as well have been welded to the frame. "Dad, leave." Vivian was filming again. Good. Let her. Let everyone see. Ryan's face was red, tears starting. "You're really going to do this? Cut us off? Over locks?" "Over betrayal." I looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the boy who'd learned to ride a bike in this driveway, who'd graduated high school, who'd married Vivian in the backyard. Saw all of it and felt nothing but tired disappointment. You could have waited, could have asked, could have trusted me to handle Elizabeth's passing with dignity. Instead, you saw an opportunity. "We were trying to help." "You were trying to help yourselves." Vivian grabbed his arm. "Come on. He's not worth it. The lawyer will fix this." They walked back to their cars. Ryan turned once, mouth open like he wanted to say something. I waited. He got in his car instead. They drove away. The security guard gave me a nod and followed them out. Maya stood by her car. "You okay?" "Yeah." "That was the hard part." "No," I said. "The hard part was Elizabeth dying. This is just cleanup." She smiled, sad and proud at once. She'd have loved watching you work. After she left, I stood on my porch and looked at my house, my door, my lock. Then I heard a car engine, Ryan's BMW, coming back up the street, fast. He skidded to a stop, jumped out, ran up the walkway. I was still standing in the doorway. "Dad, wait, please, He stopped at the bottom of the steps. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We messed up. Vivian kept saying we needed to protect the brand, protect our assets, and His voice cracked. "I just went along with it. I didn't think about what it meant. I didn't think about you." I looked at my son. 38 years old, successful business, beautiful wife, and absolutely no idea what he'd thrown away. "You get one chance, Ryan, one. You violated it." I know, but can we just—" "No." He started up the steps. I didn't move from the doorway. "Please, Dad. Mom would want—" "Don't you dare tell me what your mother would want. She's the one who gave me the tools to do this." He was crying now, ugly and desperate. "I'll give back the money. I'll fix the warehouse. I'll make it right." "You can't make this right. You can only learn from it." He reached for the door frame like he was going to try to push past me again. I didn't move. He pushed. I was a rock, a wall, an immovable piece of the house itself. His hand slipped off. He stumbled back. "This is my house," I said quietly. "My threshold. You don't cross it without permission. Not now. Not ever again. Not until you understand what you did." "I understand." "No, you don't." I took his key, the one I'd pocketed, and held it up. Let him see it. Then I closed my hand around it. "When you really understand," I said, "you won't want this back." Ryan stood on the walkway, chest heaving. Behind him, Vivian had gotten out of the car again, phone up, live stream running. "You're really going to shut me out?" Ryan's voice was breaking. "Your own son? You shut yourself out when you changed the locks. We were protecting you. You were protecting your income stream." I kept my hand on the door frame. "The cabin LLC, the marina slip, all of it flows from Elizabeth and me, from our work, our sacrifices. You wanted the benefits without the relationship. Congratulations, you got what you wanted." Vivian walked up behind him. "This is elder abuse. We'll report you to—" "To who?" I cut her off. "The HOA you violated? The bank where Emily broke protocol? The city inspector who shut down Ryan's unsafe warehouse? Go ahead. File reports. Every agency already has my documentation." She went pale. "You have 48 hours to clear your personal items from the marina slip," I continued. "After that, anything left becomes LLC property subject to disposal. The cabin rental revenues will be directed to a trust account for estate settlement. You won't see another dollar until the probate judge releases it. If he releases it." "You can't do this," Ryan shouted. "I already did. Read the LLC operating agreement. Read the trust documents. Elizabeth built this entire structure specifically to prevent what you tried to do." I looked at Vivian. "She saw you coming, both of you." Vivian's phone was still recording. Her face was a mask of rage. "This will destroy your reputation," she said. "Everyone will know you're a vindictive old man who turned on his own family. Everyone will know I defended my own home from people who tried to take it while I was grieving. Let them judge which is worse." I reached into my jacket one more time, pulled out the final notice. "This is the converted property claim, filed this morning. Vivian, you authorized and paid for services on property you don't own, using locks you had no right to install. Under California Civil Code 1708, that's conversion. The documented damages include locksmith fees, HOA violation fines, and security escort fees. Total claim, $4,300. You have 30 days to respond." I dropped it on the porch. The paper fluttered in the evening breeze. "This is the notice of trespass, effective immediately. Any further entry to this property without explicit written permission from me will result in criminal charges. That includes both of you and Emily until she provides a written apology and demonstrates she understands what she did wrong. Another paper dropped beside the first. And this, I held up the final document. This is the LLC directive. All operational control, all voting rights, all financial access. Elizabeth signed it 6 months ago. She knew exactly what she was doing. Ryan's legs seemed to give out. He sat down hard on the bottom step. Why? His voice was barely a whisper. Why would she do this to us? She didn't do it to you. She did it for me. Because she knew you'd do exactly what you did. I stepped back into the doorway. The house was dark behind me, lit only by the porch light. My shadow fell across both of them. You wanted to lock me out of my own life, I said. So I'm locking you out of the life you built on my foundation. Every dollar you spent, every opportunity you had, it came from Elizabeth and me, our work, our savings, our sacrifice. You forgot that. So I'm reminding you. Vivian pulled at Ryan's arm. Come on, the lawyer will handle this. Ryan didn't move. He was staring at the ground, shoulders shaking. Dad, he said, please. I felt something twist in my chest, not regret, not guilt, just the cold, clear recognition that this was really happening, that my son had tried to steal my home and I was watching him break because he'd failed. Elizabeth's voice in my head. Fix it the way you fix a jammed turbine, one bolt at a time. I'd loosened every bolt. The machine had come apart. Now it was just gravity and time. Goodbye, Ryan. I took the key he'd given me earlier, the silver smart lock key, and held it up one last time. Let him see it in the porch light. Then I dropped it on the ground in front of him. It bounced once, twice, came to rest on the concrete. Ryan reached for it. His hand shook. I stepped fully into the house, put my own original key into the new old cylinder from inside, felt the mechanism engage. Ryan's hand closed around the smart lock key. He looked up at me, face wet with tears. This isn't over, Vivian said from behind him. We'll sue. You'll lose. I said it simply, factually. Elizabeth made sure of it. Ryan opened his mouth, closed it. He had nothing left to say. I pushed the door. Ryan lunged forward, trying to catch it, trying to keep it open, trying to force his way into a house that was no longer his to enter. His hand hit the doorframe. My hand was already there. Carpenter's grip, mechanic's strength. 42 years of holding my ground. He couldn't move me. The door swung shut between us. I turned the deadbolt. One click. Then silence. Through the peephole, I watched them. Ryan still on the steps, staring at the closed door. Vivian pulling him up, pulling him away, phone still recording the defeat. They walked to the car, got in, drove away. I stood in my foyer, in my house, with my locks and my life and my wife's carefully built blueprint for exactly this moment. Elizabeth's note was still in my pocket. I pulled it out, read the last line again. If they push you out of your own doorway, you know what to do. I'd done it, one bolt at a time.